Good afternoon. My name is Randolph Frierson, Frierson. I have been an educator in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools for 18 years. I am here today to represent the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Association of Educators and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Government Relations Committee on behalf of President Lawrence Brinson. I have a few brief remarks before recognizing our guests. Students who attend public schools across North Carolina and who study the history of our state and its government learn that members of the North Carolina General Assembly have one primary responsibility, and that responsibility is to provide the necessary resources to maintain the essential obligations and institutions of our state. It is an awesome responsibility. To meet that responsibility, the state's constitution equips the members of the General Assembly with a power that it affords no other citizen or group of citizens. That is the power to raise the revenues that are necessary to maintain the essential obligations and institutions of our state. Every woman and man who runs for election to the state house or the state senate knows this, or should know it. And every lawmaker takes an oath of office to fully discharge this responsibility. Neither the state constitution nor the oath of office requires our legislators to pit one essential obligation or institution over another, or to shortchange one for the benefit of another. Yet, this is what our legislative majority has done. Educators, the students, and the families we serve have had enough of this game. Students in North Carolina's public schools should not be held hostage to tax cut for corporation and special interests. Meeting the needs of our students is an essential obligation of our state government because their future is North Carolina's future. Likewise, educators in our public schools, education support personnel, school district employees, families, and our communities should not be held hostage to $3.6 billion in tax cuts for corporate special interests and wealthy donors. Maintaining a highly qualified, highly skilled, competent, capable workforce is also an essential obligation of our state government. Because the work accomplished by that workforce is the building of North Carolina's future. But just as public education is an essential institution, so is public health and health care, public safety, and every other institution of our state that serves public purposes and public good. Devoting $3.6 billion in tax cuts to increase private profits for corporate interests and wealthy donors is not a constitutional responsibility of the North Carolina General Assembly. Speaking on behalf of members of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Association of Educators, I can assure you that we do our jobs. We do our duty. We meet our obligations to our students and the families and communities that we serve. And we expect our lawmakers to do their job, to do their duties, to meet their obligations. We pay attention. We saw other public employees receive a 5% raise plus 5 bonus days of annual leave. We saw Governor Cooper propose an average 9% raise for educators. We saw the legislative leadership propose a raise of only 3.9% over 2 years, while it devoted $3.6 billion to tax cuts for corporate special interests and wealthy donors. We saw Governor Cooper veto the legislature's budget, and we saw him try to negotiate and compromise with an average 8.5% raise for educators. But we saw the legislative majority do nothing with the governor's offer to negotiate. Instead, we saw the House pull tricks on September 11th to override the governor's veto. And we have watched the Senate majority wait for an opportunity to do the same. These are not behaviors of men and women who would faithfully discharge their constitutional duties or would uphold their oath of office. They are the behaviors of politicians who would score political points against the governor rather than to serve the needs of our citizens and to help our students be the best that they can be for their futures. Students, parents, educators, and our communities deserve better service than this. We deserve a better deal. So we're here today to urge lawmakers to stand up to bullying, to stand strong for public schools and our students. We ask our elected representatives to stand against dishonest tricks and dishonest bargains that offer dishonest incentive with strings attached and that leave our educational support professionals behind. Lawmakers who say they care about students in public schools should demonstrate that they care also about the food service workers, the clerical workers, the teacher's assistant, the custodial workers, the building and ground workers, the bus drivers, and the transportation workers. While we continue to do our job, do our duty, and meet our obligation to the children we serve, inside and outside of the classroom, we cannot be silent about the dishonesty of the legislative majority. This dishonesty to say that the legislature can afford to dole out $3.6 billion in tax cuts to corporate special interests and wealthy donors, but that the legislature cannot afford to a decent raise for educators and education support personnel. Our students, our communities, our families, all North Carolinians deserve better. Today we are grateful to the Senate minority, which has maintained its commitments to public education and to the communities and families around North Carolina. I am pleased to be joined by members of the Senate and the House, Senator Jeff Jackson, Senator Jeff Waddell, and Joyce Waddell, and Representative John Autry. I would like to ask them, the senators, to offer their thoughts at this